Okay, hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Maggie Epstein and I'm the Marketing and Outreach Manager here at Primary Source. I'm very excited to welcome you today. We'd like to thank the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership for their support of our Japan webinars this spring. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit more about Primary Source. And you should be seeing, there's a GoToWebinar viewer, so you should also see what's on my screen, and you should also hear me in your audio. So hopefully that's working for everybody. I want to first welcome those of you who are new to Primary Source and say hello again to those of you who have taken courses or webinars with us before. For those of you who don't know, Primary Source educates K-12 teachers about world histories, cultures, and global issues. We provide graduate courses, workshops, and study tours that bring global perspectives to K-12 classrooms across the United States. Our programs give teachers background knowledge and teaching ideas on Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and the United States. And many of our courses help teachers make curricular connections across multiple borders and cultures. We have a 7,000-piece library here at our offices in Watertown, Massachusetts, and our online curriculum and resource guide collection is growing and expanding. Approximately 2,500 educators participate in our programs each year, and this means that over 200,000 students benefit from our work annually. To learn more about us, I want to invite you to visit our website at primarysource.org. All right. Before we go even further, I do want to do just a quick poll of everyone in the room. So I was asking you to type in your location, but we also have this poll that should show up on your screen. If you could type in, or actually just select the time zone where you're participating from, I can show you all on the screen where everyone's coming from today. So please just click the appropriate button for where you're participating from. All right, almost everyone has voted, so I'll close that and share it with you all. So you can see that we have plenty of folks from the Eastern time zone, so welcome to everyone, also from the Mountain and the Central time zone. And the recording of this will be made available so everyone can watch it later on. Okay. We'll also share a link to the PowerPoint slides that we're showing today. And we'll pause several times during the webinar to take questions. So if you have any questions that come up, just type those into the questions box. I have a couple of colleagues on the line also who are able to answer questions as we're going through the webinar. So hopefully you can get your questions answered either during the Q&A period or by one of us individually. We'll just type a response back to you. All right, so I'm very pleased to have here with me today my colleague, Gina Sultan. Gina is the Marketing and Development Associate here at Primary Source. A recent graduate of Tufts University, Gina supports a wide range of initiatives here at Primary Source, all with the goal of gaining more visibility and support for our programs for teachers. In just a moment, Gina will be walking us through the latest free resources created by Primary Source to support your teaching and learning about Japan. And as I mentioned earlier, I am the Marketing and Outreach Manager here at Primary Source, and prior to this position, I also served as a program coordinator and an educational technology consultant here at Primary Source. And I'm very pleased to be able to share with you today a sneak preview of our brand new online course about Japan's history and culture. So I'll be back in a little bit, but for now I'm going to hand the microphone over to Gina, who's going to start us off today. So let us just do the little transition here, and hopefully we can do it as smoothly as we practiced. So I'll make Gina the presenter. Okay. And I'll unmute Gina as well. So Gina, you're ready to go.
Okay, great. Thanks, Maggie. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to show you two types of resources that Primary Source creates for K-12 educators, and they're all free and accessible on our website. So we have resource guides and online curriculum clusters. I'll start out by introducing you to our resource guides in general, and then we'll take a look at a few guides that focus on Japan. So just bear with me if I pause sometimes when I'm switching slides or showing you a website. That's just because I'm trying to leave time for your screens to load and catch up to mine. So hopefully you're all caught up now. So resource guides. We have a collection of around 65 guides on world regions and cultures. Each guide includes book and film recommendations about that topic. And if you look on the right side of the slide, you'll see examples of books from a few different resource guides. So in a sense, they're kind of like bibliographies, but most go further and also include pages on subtopics or links to recommended websites and online curriculum. And you'll get a better idea of what that looks like when we look at some of the Japan guides. These guides are all geared mainly towards teachers and students, so you can use the recommended resources in your own learning about a country or topic, and there are also resources you can use directly with your students in the classroom. So now I'll show you how to get to these guides from the Primary Source homepage, which I'll pull up right now. Okay. So at the top of the page, you should see a navigation bar, and you'll want to click on Resources. And on the left of this page, you'll see tabs for resource guides and bibliographies and online curriculum. So we'll come back to the online curriculum later, but for now, let's click on the resource guides. So you should notice that these guides are organized by region. So we have Africa, Asia, global education, Latin America, and so on. But for now, we're going to go ahead and click on the Japan guide in the Asia section.
Gina, I'm just going to ask if you can make that full screen. Is that possible?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
It's still not really getting any bigger. Hold on.
Okay, maybe center it just so for the sort of visual. It's a little hard to see, but
okay. Is that better?
Great. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay. So hopefully everyone can see better now. And as you can see, the guide is organized by type of resource or subtopic, and you can navigate between the sections using the blue tabs on the top of the page. So there's things you'll find in a traditional bibliography like books and films, and I just clicked on the Books tab. But there are also sections that go beyond what you might expect to see in a typical bibliography. So I'm just going to switch back to my slides right now to go more into depth in the highlights of this guide. So the subsections listed on this slide in a bright purple color are the unique aspects of the Japan guide that I'll share with you. So we have a Google Earth tour, pages on World War II and the bomb and Japanese-American internment, and a page featuring Japan in the news. So before we move on, I'll just take a moment to mention that all of our resource guides aren't meant to be 100% comprehensive of the topic they're about. We know that would be quite an exhaustive list, and of course, there's an incredible amount of resources out there. So what we've done is searched far and wide and combed through large amounts of resources to put together these collections for you. So you can be confident that you'll find high-quality, vetted resources in every guide, and that they're a great way to introduce yourself to a country you know little about, or to delve more deeply into a topic you're familiar with. And the guides are structured in a way that allows you to pick and choose which resources and areas to focus on in your learning and with your students. So one interesting thing you'll find in this guide is a Google Earth tour of Japan. As many of you probably know, Google Earth is a free downloadable program that allows you to explore a virtual globe. So we created this tour for you to virtually travel to Japan with your students, with pushpins denoting stops at Tokyo, Mount Fuji, Kyoto, and other places. At each destination, students can zoom in and discover information about Japanese food, history, or culture. This tour is particularly good for use in elementary classrooms, but it can also be used across grade levels and subjects. The Japan Resource Guide also includes a direct link to the tour, as well as tips for using it. So don't worry if you've never used Google Earth before. And this is a screenshot of what one of the stops on the tour looks like. And you can see a yellow pushpin in the middle of the screen. It's a little bit small, but hopefully you can see it. And that shows that we're now at the Kyoto Gardens. So when students get to a destination like this one, a box with information about the site will pop up, including photos and questions to guide student exploration. Another highlight of this resource guide is a section with resources on World War II and the bomb. This section includes book suggestions from fiction relating to the Hiroshima bombing to children's nonfiction, biography, history books, and more. In addition, you'll also find recommendations for online curriculum units and websites, which include links to primary sources. This part of the guide also has film recommendations and a film trailer embedded right on the page. And actually, if you take a look at the picture on the slide, you can see that it's a screenshot of a film clip from the guide. So the next section we'll look at is another page on a specific Japan-related topic, this time Japanese-American internment. So like the page on World War II and the bomb, this section includes books, films, curriculum, websites, and primary source recommendations. And the picture on this slide is one of the books featured in the guide, which is a young adult novel that tells the story of a 12-year-old girl and her Japanese-American family who are relocated from their flower farm in Southern California to an internment camp in Arizona. So the last thing I want to highlight in this guide is a section on Japan in the news. And what you see on the slide is a screenshot from this part of the guide. So the interesting thing about this page is that it gives you access to non-U.S. news sources. So in addition to articles from the New York Times and U.S. papers relating to Japan, we also feature links to actual Japanese publications that are in Japanese and also have English translations. So these recommendations give you a variety of sources you can use in the classroom to encourage considering multiple different perspectives on history and current events. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to the Resource Guide's website. And briefly show you a couple of other guides that touch on Japan. So if we go to the Asia section down over here, we'll see there's a guide on Asians and Asian Americans in the United States. And this guide features a page with more resources on Japanese American internment. And we also have a guide on East Asian literature, which I'll click on right now. So as you can see, this guide has a tab on Japanese literature, including poetry, short stories, drama, novels, children's folktales, and fiction. And you'll also find online curriculum and websites with stories that you can read online in the websites and online curriculum section. Okay, so now that we've gone over resource guides on teaching and learning about Japan, let's look at our online curriculum clusters. So each of these clusters contains teacher-created, classroom-ready activities designed around 3 key primary sources. We use a variety of types of sources, including written documents, audio clips, photos, videos, charts, and graphs. In addition, each cluster features a background essay written by a scholar to contextualize the activities, plus links to further resources. So on this site, if we scroll down a little, you can see some of the topics that our curriculum clusters cover. But we're going to just start by looking at the first one, Cultural Snapshots of Daily Life in Japan for Elementary Students. And later we'll take a look at another Japan-related cluster that's geared more toward middle and high school grade levels. Okay, so the overall purpose of this cluster is to help young students understand cultural values that some Japanese hold and to recognize similarities and differences between Japanese culture and their own. This cluster achieves that by looking at 3 things that American students have some connection to: food, literacy, and transportation, and exploring how some of these concepts operate in Japan. The primary sources and activities included here were chosen to depict daily activities in a way that goes beyond traditional stereotypes often associated with Japan. So I'm going to switch back to my slides now. Okay, so here are 3 primary sources and corresponding activities that you'll use in this cluster to look at food, literacy, and transportation in Japan. In the first activity, students will examine the relationship between food, nutrition, and art through pictures of obento lunches. In Japan, obento is a generic word for a portable meal, which is similar to a boxed or bagged lunch in American culture. So in these lunch boxes, food is carefully presented in ready-to-eat individual portions in an attempt to provide a nutritious meal away from home. In the second activity, students will explore the significance of seasonality through haiku. They'll listen to recordings of Japanese haiku with English translation and illustrations, and they'll also create haiku of their own. And in the third activity, audio recordings of train departure melodies illustrate the role of public transportation in Japan. So it should be noted that these 3 activities are not necessarily intended to be taught all together as a unit, but rather you can insert an activity into your curriculum where it makes sense. And if I just go back for a second, you can also see appropriate grade levels are suggested, though most sources and activities are adaptable for use across grade levels and subject areas. The activities are also designed with Common Core standards in mind, so they're a great tool to incorporate international perspectives into Common Core lessons. So one of the great things about our curriculum clusters is that everything you need to implement the lessons is all included in one place. So we provide background text and vocabulary terms, key questions to guide student learning, any documents to download or links to multimedia if they're part of the source activity, suggested curriculum connections, and instructions for the main primary source activity, as well as pre-learning and an optional extension activity. So now let's take a look at the Obento Japanese Lunchbox primary source activity to get a better idea of what each lesson contains. In this lesson, students will examine the characteristics of bento and think about how bento reflects an appreciation of food, aesthetics, and nutrition. Students will apply these understandings as they create their own artistic representation of bento using paper to reflect the cultural values that they have learned about. And on this slide, you can see the relevant vocabulary terms and key questions included to guide students' learning. And the website also includes background text on the topic, which is both for your understanding and for conveying to your students as part of the lesson. In terms of connecting this lesson to your curriculum, possibilities include using this activity when teaching about food and culture, nutrition, spelling, vocabulary, or art. So now we're getting to the main part of the lesson, the actual classroom activities. Each activity includes a detailed list of materials you'll need and a step-by-step procedure to implement the lesson. So in the pre-learning activity, students will look at and examine Obento pictures, like the ones you see here, which are all linked to in the Documents for Download section. You'll have students consider how they feel when they see food presented in this way and whether they want to eat the food. And after they've had a chance to make observations, you'll introduce and explain what Obento lunches are. In the main activity, you'll have students explore more background and context about Obento through a Japan Times article, which is also linked to in the materials section. So you'll initiate a class discussion on the aesthetic, functional, and nutritional values of bento. And finally, students will apply what they've learned to create their own bento out of paper. There's also an optional extension activity, which is to have students create bento using real food and bring it in for lunch, or make bento using food in the classroom. So a highlight of this cluster is that it's geared toward elementary students, and there are also many ways to connect the lessons to curriculum. So in addition to the connections I mentioned in the Obento activity, the haiku lesson can connect with curriculum on Japanese culture, poetry, grammar, or learning about the seasons, while the train departure melody activities can also connect with learning about transportation, sounds, and urban centers. The haiku activity also provides a fresh take on haiku by going beyond learning about the structure of the poem to connecting it to seasonality and comparing students' own cultures with Japanese culture. The train activity features recordings of actual departure melodies used in Japanese train stations, and students can use these to learn about the importance of public transportation in Japan. So we just went through the Cultural Snapshots cluster, and now let's look at the other Japan curriculum cluster that we have, and that's on political and cultural identity in post-war Japan. So as I mentioned before, this cluster is more geared to older students in middle and high school grades, and its overall purpose is to provide curriculum on a part of Japan's history that students don't typically have a chance to learn about in depth. We found that much of the focus on modern Japan and U.S. curriculum is on Japan's role in World War I, or on its status as an economic superpower by the 1980s. So this curriculum cluster aims to shed light on Japan's transformation between World War II and the 80s, and to introduce students to the steps along Japan's path from a defeated aggressor nation to a peace-oriented, prosperous power. So the three primary sources and activities included here all illustrate how the Japanese have thought about these changes, which is to say, embracing certain rules and practices while questioning or rejecting others. In the first primary source activity, students will examine Japan's post-war identity as a peace state, and how that identity was a product of Article 9 of the new Constitution created by Americans under General MacArthur. In the second activity, students will look at aspects of Japanese cultural identity influenced by the West, and how the Japanese have incorporated American cultural practices into their own culture versus how they've adapted them. So view a clip of Saze-san, which is an animated Japanese cartoon, to consider what this suggests about Japanese identity and Japanese post-war attitudes toward the West. And also, if you happen to be looking at the curriculum cluster online right now, I just want to let you know that we just discovered today that the link to the cartoon clip isn't working, but we'll be working on fixing that and getting the video back up as soon as we can. So finally, the last activity uses photographs to explore the April 2010 Okinawan protests against the U.S. base at Futenma. And you can see an example of one of the images on this slide, photo down over here. So students will take a look at Google Earth, a Google Earth tour of Okinawa, and learn about the history of the U.S. military in this area. These sources will guide students in thinking about the variety of opinions held by the Okinawan people about these U.S. military bases and why the relationship between the U.S. bases and Okinawa is characterized by so much tension. Okay, so now let's go back to the website. And I'll show you how this cluster is laid out online. So as you can see, this cluster includes all the same components as the cultural snapshots cluster we just looked at. So at the top, there's tabs for the background essay, and then the 3 primary sources and activities, and a link for further resources. So let's go ahead and click on the background essay. So on the left of this page, you'll notice there's a video embedded of the Okinawa protests. And I just want to highlight this essay here because it's written by the Associate Director of the Institute for Japan Studies at Harvard University. So it's really a great starting point for your own learning that provides a detailed, comprehensive overview of the topic. And you're also getting expert information that contextualizes the primary sources and activities that you'll do with your students. You can see it's a very thoroughly written essay and the different topics and themes that it touches on. So now let's go ahead and click on the first primary source document, which is the Japan's Peace Constitution. So up on the left, under the primary source box right here, you'll see the beginning of Article 9 of Japan's new constitution in 1946. And if you click on it, it'll take you right to that document. On the right, there's some more background information related directly to this source and activity. And if we scroll down, you'll see key questions to guide student learning, a list of terms, and a description of this classroom activity, along with the links to all materials you'll need to implement it. And if we look at the curriculum connections over here, you can see that there are a lot of possible ways to connect this lesson to different kinds of curriculum. For example, when teaching civics, comparative government, or the U.S. Constitution. Or you can connect it with teaching about World War II and the atomic bomb, or use it as a comparison with studies of peace or occupation in other countries, such as Iraq and Afghanistan. So now I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint for just a couple more slides, and then we'll have some time to take questions before I pass it over to Maggie, who will talk about our upcoming online course. So before moving on, I just want to quickly touch on additional ways you can connect teaching about post-war Japan to your curriculum using the other 2 activities in this cluster. So the activity that uses a Japanese cartoon clip is great to use when teaching about world cultures, globalization of culture, holidays around the world, and world religions. And you can use the photos depicting Okinawan protests of U.S. military bases to connect to teaching about current events in modern Japan, or include this activity when teaching about international relations, nonviolent protests, community action, and environmental threats. So that wraps up what I have to say about our online resources on Japan. And we have a bit of time now to stop and take some questions.
Great, thanks, Gina. Again, if you have any questions that have come up, either about the Japan resource guide that Gina talked about first, or either of the curriculum clusters, we can try to answer those. Again, we are not the ones who created it, so we can do our best to answer your questions that you have today. So let's see. Gina, we do have one coming in from Liz. She asked, does any of your online curriculum support the Common Core?
Okay, yep, that's a good question. So most of the online curriculum that we have, as I think mentioned, is designed with Common Core standards in mind. So we didn't really align the activities specifically to state standards, but they're sort of created to be adaptable. So they definitely can be used to teach using Common Core standards.
Great. Yeah, and I do know that there's a big emphasis in the Common Core standards on informational texts, and I think that any of the primary sources that we've included in our curriculum clusters could be used as informational texts in a variety of ways. So we hope that those will be useful for everyone in supporting teaching for the Common Core. All right. We did get another question. The teacher asks, how can I share these great curriculum clusters with other teachers?
Okay, so that's a great question too. And actually, I'll show you how we can share them by going back to one of the guides on the website. So if we go up to the top, we actually have a button right on the site where you can share to Facebook, Twitter, or other networking sites. And I think we've mentioned these are free and available to everyone, so we'd love for you to share them with whoever you want to. And you can also print the guides out if you want to have an actual copy, just by clicking this print guide button. And you can also subscribe to RSS updates to be notified if we ever change or add anything to any of the guides, which we'll do sometime.
Great. Another question, again, about the curriculum clusters is who created the activities? Was it primary source staff, teachers?
Sure. So the clusters are created, they're sort of in collaboration with primary source staff members and also teachers that are sort of expert teachers on those topics. So you can actually see, if you scroll down, there's a section that says about the authors in each online curriculum cluster, and it tells you exactly who was involved in creating them. So here in this one, we've got Deb Cunningham, who is our Senior Program Director at Primary Source, and Lina Yamashita, who is a Program Coordinator here. And this Japan curriculum cluster was also created with an 8th grade teacher of humanities in Watertown.
Great. Thanks, Gina. And I guess to wrap up this section, Gina, if you could just share if you know of any upcoming curriculum clusters that we're developing here at Primary Source or any upcoming resource guides.
Sure. So actually coming up, we have 2 new online curriculum clusters that we'll be developing and that will be available in the future. We have one on India and the environment and another one on Chinese culture and art for elementary students. And as far as resource guides go, our librarian, Jen, adds resource guides to our collection at various points throughout the year. So, yeah.
Great, thanks so much. So we will now be transitioning into the online course preview. So give us a second to get our computers ready to go. Okay. All right. Oops. Skipped one. Okay. Let's see. And if you do have any questions for Gina or about the resource guides, you can continue to type those into the questions box. And we will take some more questions at the end. Thanks, Gina. All right. We are very excited to offer this sneak peek of our brand new online course. It's called Japan and the World, Historical and Cultural Developments from the 5th Century to the Present. Let's see. This course will make its debut this fall, and we're in the process of putting on all the final touches right now. This 10-week course was developed by Primary Source staff in collaboration with scholars of Japanese history and culture. Now, we realized that it would be impossible to do all of Japan's culture and history in one course. So instead of creating a 1,000-week course, we chose key themes that are reflective of the K-12 curriculum, and we focused on those that are accessible and interesting for students. So we also chose topics that might offer opportunities to share new scholarship and new insights for approaching topics that some teachers may have been teaching for a long time. So Japan and the World is actually an 8-session course, and this means that you do have 2 weeks off during the course of the 10 weeks. Each week, you'll be expected to complete several readings, 1 or more activities related to the session theme, and participate in a facilitated asynchronous discussion. So this means that the discussion happens in a group forum but you can actually participate at any time over the course of the week-long session. I will talk more about each of these course components in just a minute, but for now I wanted to go over what topics will be covered in this course. Here we go. The first session includes an introduction to the online course itself, as well as readings and activities about Japan's geography, people, and beliefs. The second session explores key themes in Japanese history from the 5th century through the 16th centuries. And in this session, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the formation of the early Japanese state and the subsequent rise of feudalism. The third session focuses on society during the Edo period and addresses common misconceptions about this period. So I'll show you some of the great resources that are featured in this session a little bit later on. In session 4, you'll learn about Japan's rapid industrialization and new international role after the Meiji Restoration. In session 5, you'll explore Japan's increased internationalism and imperial expansion during the first half of the 20th century. In this session, you'll participate in a live chat with a scholar who specializes in Japan's foreign policy and role in the Second World War. And this is the only time that you'll be required to participate at a set time, but participants in our other online courses have reported that this is often one of their favorite parts of the course, so you won't want to miss it. Session 6 explores the changes in Japan's post-war domestic and international identity and examines the rise of Japan as an economic superpower following World War II. In session 7, you'll explore various aspects of contemporary Japanese society and consider recent trends, successes, and challenges. This is also the session where you'll submit your final course assignment, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And finally, session 8 invites you to discuss contemporary Japanese culture and its relationship with the West. Through an examination of popular culture and current events, you'll think about Japan's role in the world today. Now, we've outlined some course goals that I wanted to share with you before we go into the details of the course. So in this course, you'll engage with scholarly materials and participate in stimulating discussions on Japanese history and culture. You'll acquire valuable resources and discuss ways to integrate new materials into classroom instruction. You'll experiment with new technologies, and obviously you'll challenge your own skills as an online learner. You'll build a rationale for teaching a theme related to Japanese history or culture, and you'll explore several web-based resources to support that theme. And you'll acquire new pedagogical strategies for teaching about Japanese history and culture. Now, there are several course components that make up this course. In addition to readings and activities, you'll also participate in a discussion forum. And as I mentioned earlier, it's completely asynchronous. This means that you can complete it on your own time whenever it's convenient for you. The time for completing each session, so all readings, activities, discussions, is between 3 to 5 hours each week. You'll be expected to complete a final project for the course using the Web 2.0 tool LiveBinders. And each week, you'll complete tasks related to this final assignment so that you're not trying to complete an entire assignment at the very end of the course. Now, we've designed this as an introductory course, so you don't need any prior knowledge of Japan. But if you do have some knowledge already, you should know that there is differentiation built into the course. So there are advanced reading options, and several sessions have optional activities that you can use to extend your learning. As well, every section includes additional resources about the topics presented. So this course is open to all K through 12 teachers, administrators, and specialists. If you complete all the course requirements, including all the readings, activities, and discussion forums, as well as the final assignment, you'll earn 45 professional development points. And an additional fee and project is required to earn 2 graduate credits. And I can answer any questions about this project during the Q&A. All right. Let's see. Okay. We actually have another poll. I kind of want to see who's out there and if you have taken an online course with us before. So let me just launch this poll. The question is, have you participated in an online course before? You can just click yes or no, and then we'll see how many people have done an online course and for how many people this would be your first online course. All right, so get your vote in. Click yes or click no. The votes are coming in quickly. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll just share this. 57% said no, 43% said yes. So about half and half, which is great. I'm glad you're all here and interested in learning more about this online course. So perhaps the online course that you participated in used Moodle. We use Moodle to make our online courses user-friendly. So what is Moodle? Moodle is a course management system, and that means that it allows you to access all aspects of the course in one central location. So as long as you remember your username and password, you're not going to lose track of any course components. And you can always find the assignment guidelines, the course syllabus, and all the information for every session here in the Moodle site. So even if you've never taken an online course before, as it seems many of you have not, don't worry. You're going to learn all about how to use Moodle in session 1 of the course. And of course, your course facilitator is available to answer any questions or concerns that you may have about using Moodle. And this is a screenshot of the Moodle page for this course, and I'll actually show you it live in just a minute. So we'll look at that later. Let's dive in now, and we're going to explore some of the sessions and activities in more depth. So first, we're going to look at session 1. And as I said before, you'll get an introduction to the course and have an opportunity to meet your fellow classmates in this session. But you'll also jump right into course content. You'll learn about Japanese language, the geographic and ethnic diversity of Japan, the influence of geography on daily life, and Japanese belief systems. As I said before, each section includes introductory readings and videos or other multimedia to give you background knowledge on the session's topic. As well, there are activities. One of the activities in session 1 asks you to explore a variety of resources that look at Japan's geography through visual imagery. So you'll also be introduced to several great maps, and these could be used directly with students as well. A second activity in this session explores the importance of geographic features in early Japanese belief systems, looking at the specific example of the Shinto religion and the Japanese creation myth. The activity concludes with the questions, how does the story help us understand Japanese culture? How would you use the creation myth as a way to illustrate the importance of geography in Japanese culture and life? Now, these questions don't require a written response, but they may influence your response to the next activity, which is a journal reflection. So this journal reflection is private between you and the course facilitator. So it's actually different from the rest of the course, which are discussion forums, and those are public, but only in the sense that they're public to your fellow course participants. All right, I'm going to talk briefly now about a few of the other activities in this course. Now, we don't have time to go into each session in depth, but I want to point out what are some of the highlights that I think of this course. In session 3, you'll explore the arts in the Edo period using an online gallery designed for this course by the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. And you can see on your screen a screenshot of one slide from the gallery there. So it has an image, and then on the sides there are some questions and more information about the artwork. You'll also have the opportunity to choose one art form to explore in more depth. So the choices here are drama, including no and kabuki, poetry and literature, including haiku poetry, painting, and the tea ceremony. Okay, another activity I've chosen to highlight is part of session 5. And this one allows you to, again, choose one area to explore more in depth as you deepen your understanding of what World War II was like for the Japanese people. And this screenshot is one that you would explore more if you chose the home front section of this session. Okay, this activity offers a variety of options for you to explore further a specific topic that might interest you. Once again, the image I included here is from a video clip that's part of the section on education in Japan, but you could also explore Japanese business culture, gender issues, Japanese environmentalism, or the urban-rural divide. We've also included an activity about the 2011 earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear crisis, and it also explores more generally how to teach about disasters. This image here is from the New York Times multimedia special that has some great before and after photos of the affected areas. So in this activity, you'd explore that resource in a little bit more depth. Okay. Finally, another very cool activity that you'll get to explore asks you to choose a Japanese newspaper and think about several questions, a few of which I've included here. So what, if any, course themes or content are reflected in the paper or article that you chose, and how is modern Japan represented in these accounts? All right. As I've mentioned before, the discussion forums are facilitated by a course moderator and are totally asynchronous, meaning you can participate whenever it's convenient for you over the course of the week-long session. I thought I'd share just a few examples of discussion forum topics to give you a sense for the kinds of discussions you'll have with other course participants. So in session 2, which is state formation and disintegration, you'll respond to the questions, what are some key themes from this period that you think students should know? What kinds of resources would you look for or use to help deepen students' understanding of these concepts? And what questions do you have about classical and feudal Japan? In session 5, the prompt is, navigating issues of war and peace in the classroom can be extremely challenging, particularly when we are limited by the time we are able to devote to such topics. What are the key ideas from this time period that you would want your students to understand? How can we cultivate in our students a nuanced understanding of Japan's wartime policies and decisions in a way that reflects the complexities of war? So each week, you're required to post twice to the session's discussion forum. You must post an original substantive comment to the prompt and also reply to at least one other person in the group. And as I mentioned, the session activities will also pose questions for consideration as you explore various resources. Although you're welcome to take notes and address these questions on your own, formal discussion on these topics is not a requirement. Only the designated discussion forums are required, although you can certainly start a new discussion thread on any topic that interests you that week. Okay. I want to talk now a little bit about the final assignment for this course. And for this, you'll learn how to use LiveBinders, which if you haven't used it, it's a really great Web 2.0 tool that lets you compile and organize websites, resources, files, and text online. So this LiveBinder that we're looking at on screen is just one example that I found. It's for a middle school social studies class. And you'll notice that there are major tabs across the top, and then below that, the sub-tabs. And each of those sub-tabs links to a website. So it's a really great way to organize your thoughts and organize your bookmarks, essentially. Here again is another screenshot. This one shows that you can actually embed images and websites on one half of the screen. That's over here on the left. And then on the right side, you can add in text. So this isn't a lot of text, but you could add in some instructions for students and teachers in this section. In the LiveBinder that you'll create for your final assignment, you'll develop a collection of resources that you could use in your teaching on a topic of your choice on some aspect of Japanese history or culture. So the LiveBinder tool functions as a digital 3-ring binder and allows you to gather and organize groups of resources or websites together that you can share with your students, your colleagues, or you can just use it yourself. The goal of this assignment is for you to organize and share useful resources on Japan, while also exploring a practical tool that you can really use in any aspect of your work. Steps in the process to complete this final assignment are due at various points throughout the online course, which means you have lots of support from your course facilitator, and the final LiveBinder is due during session 7. All right, here again is a screenshot of the course Moodle page, and I want to go now live to that page so I can kind of show you just a sneak peek of what that page looks like. So let's see if I can get that up quickly. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Great. So again, this is the course Moodle page, and we're still working on finalizing everything in terms of the graphics on this page, but it should give you a sense for what you'll encounter if you take this course. You can see that there's some basic information about the course that will always be there. You won't lose the course syllabus. It's always there, your LiveBinders assignment. There also is a question parking lot, and one neat feature about this is that we'll have a parking lot scholar, so a scholar who's kind of signed up to answer any questions that may come in that parking lot. They can be sort of about any topic that you're studying during the course. This is what session 1 looks like. Okay, we'll click on the session just so you can see. Again, this isn't exactly how it's going to look in the final setting, but it's pretty close, so you'll see that there are some learning objectives for the session. You'll have some introductory videos. Oops. And one of the things you'll do before you start the course is make sure that you have all of the plugins downloaded to show the videos. I apologize for not having that set up. But I do want to show you the activity sections. So you'll choose some resources and explore the links here. There are several different maps that you'll be able to explore, and then also the Shinto religion activity that I mentioned before, and the journal reflection. Okay, we're going to go back. We're back on the home page of the course, and I want to show you the discussion forum. You may be wondering what that looks like. This is the orientation discussion forum. So in this one, you're just going to be introducing yourself. You'll click on Add a New Discussion Topic. Okay, you'll enter in hello from Maggie. Well, you'd enter your name, and then you enter your message. Okay, hopefully you can see that has been typed in, and then you just scroll down. Obviously, you would enter in a little bit more information than I have here today, and you'd post to forum. Okay, you can see my post there came up, and that's what it will look like. And other educators, other participants in the course can reply to you, and you can also add other new discussion topics as needed in the forum. So it's fairly straightforward, and again, everything is all in one place. Right. And you can see here we have the preview is just 2 other sessions, so you'll be able to kind of see what those would look like. All right, I think I'm going to stop talking. I've talked quite a bit, and we have just a few minutes left for some questions. So let me get this slide up, and I will ask Gina to come back on the line. All right, Gina, are there any questions that have come in?
Yep, we've got a question from a teacher who wants to know how much does this course cost?
Great. I think I had it on the slide there, but for educators in primary source partner districts, this course would be covered by your partnership with Primary Source. So all you would need to do is contact your partner liaison in the fall, and we can give you more information about that in the fall if you have any questions. And then for all other educators, it's $375, and then the additional fees for graduate credits.
Okay, great. So there's one more question, a few more, and this one is on the final project. The teacher wants to know, is the final project optional?
Great, thanks. So the final LiveBinders assignment is not optional. It's part of the course, and as I said, you'll work on it throughout the course so that you're not falling behind right at the very end, which is a great way to do it, I think. And there's also the one project that is optional is the graduate credit project. So if you're signed up to get graduate credits for the course, you would have an additional curriculum project.
Okay, great. And we have a question coming in from Catherine, and she wants to know, who is the course facilitator?
Great. So our course facilitators are experienced educators who have familiarity with the topic, and we have people who have experience also with facilitating online courses. So that's a really important aspect as well, that they know how to support you in using Moodle, and they actually do several check-ins throughout the course of the 10 weeks. They're available. Sometimes they have office hours. They're always available by email. So we found that the course facilitator is a really important role that makes this course quite rigorous and I would say yeah, a really great experience for the participants.
Okay. We have another question from Takako, and I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. So the question is, can college teachers take this course?
Yes, the course has been designed with K-12 educators in mind, but it's really open to anyone who is interested in using the resources for teaching and for learning. So I would say that if you are a college educator and you're interested in kind of talking to us more about would this be a good fit for me, you can email me, Maggie, or my colleague Abby, which I'll put her email address up in just a minute.
Okay, and a follow-up question to the course facilitator one is, do we know who some of the scholars are providing content for the course? I'm not sure if you have that answer yet, Maggie, but.
Yeah, I don't, off the top of my head, I can't name the scholars right now, but what we'll do, Catherine, is follow up with an email, and we can kind of point to some of the scholars that have been a part of this course. I do know that Ted Gilman, the person who wrote the background essay for the high school curriculum cluster that Gina talked about, is one of our scholars who's been a part of providing the content. So.
Okay, great. And we also have a question about the extra-graduate credit requirements and costs.
Sure. Again, I am unprepared with the exact costs for the graduate credits, and it's we get our graduate credits. We have the course is through Endicott College. Actually, it's not the course. The graduate credits come from Endicott College. So they set the prices for those, but it's very affordable. I believe for 2 graduate credits, it's $200, but again, I will confirm that in the follow-up email. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. And the requirement for that is really complete all of the course requirements that everyone has to complete, and then the final curriculum project, which is really a project that's, again, designed to be useful for you in your classroom, and is really a lesson plan that you could implement using the resources and materials that you've gained in the course.
Great. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. So we have a question from a teacher who has never taken an online course before, and they're concerned about being able to keep up.
Sure, that's a great question. And it's true that online courses take a certain level of self-discipline. Again, as I said, it's about 3 to 5 hours of work each week, and that includes the readings, the activities, the discussion forum. So you need to be able to set aside time each week. It's really important that you say on Tuesday night I'm going to spend 1 hour, and then Thursday another hour, and that can be difficult. But I think that just setting some time for yourself is a really great way to do it. And again, the course facilitator is experienced with Moodle and can answer any questions that you have. The live chat that's part of the online course actually uses the same system that we're using here today. So if you've participated successfully today in our live webinar, you will certainly be able to participate in the live chat as well.
Great. So I think that's all the time we have for now.
Okay. Great. So we have a couple of follow-up slides here. I just wanted to, again, share the URLs for the resources that Gina shared. Let me just quick. All right. We have the Japan Resource Guide, and that's resources.primarysource.org/Japan. The Primary Source World section that Gina shared, of course, you can get to it if you're on our homepage. Just click on Resources and then Online Curriculum, and they'll be there. And then also the direct URLs are here. We will certainly include these in our follow-up email to you so that you can just click on them and easily share those resources, again, with your colleagues. Okay, and coming up at Primary Source, we actually have our Summer Institutes. Registration is happening right now. Our deadline for that is tomorrow, but if you happen to let us know in a week or so that you're interested, we'll probably be able to get you in as well. So if you go to primarysource.org/summerinstitutes, we actually have 2 online courses running this summer about China. So if you're intrigued by our model and want to learn more about China, you can sign up for one of those. And the Japan and the World online course will be run this fall, this coming fall. And I would encourage you to email Abby at primarysource.org for more information. She's actually traveling in China right now with a group of Primary Source educators. But she'll be able to get back to you with more information, and we can put your name down on a list of people who are interested in the course. So that would be great if you contacted Abby. All right. I want to thank my colleague Gina for joining me today, also Jennifer and Liz who are on the line helping put out some links for me and answering questions. And thank you to everyone who came and spent part of your afternoon with us. If there were any questions, again, that I couldn't answer or that sort of came in as we were wrapping up, we will answer those in the follow-up email. So we appreciate all of your questions today. On behalf of everyone here at Primary Source, thank you. And we will be sending out the follow-up email. It will take a few days for us to get that recording ready for you and get the resources, so look out for that in a few days. When you exit the webinar today, a 3-question survey will open up. We really appreciate your feedback on this webinar. So if you have any suggestions or comments, please let us know and we'll be able to improve future webinars. And of course, we invite you to stay in touch with us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, and of course our website, primarysource.org, where you can sign up for our newsletters as well. So we hope to see you again in future webinars or in this summer at our summer institutes or next fall in the Japan online course. Thanks so much.